people are deciding this fall about schooling, you can see the systemic racism moving things forward. System is just the way you do things. Now, if the way you doing things give you a greater advantage than somebody else, then your system in of itself has some problems. Affirmative action came to fix a problem. A lot of folks see affirmative action as a problem. I played football. I played at Furman University. When I went there, I was the first black interior offensive lineman. The starting defense was black. I shouldn't say that. Most of them were. The receivers, the running backs, were black. There was one position that could not be black. I'm just talking about on the team. I ain't even talking about the management. And among the management and all my coaching, I did only spend 13 in it, but in all my years in education, you know, I often was the token. The system says just get one in there. And if you get one minority that meet all of it, you ain't got to get but one minority. That's systemic racism. Back to the schools. You know, some people are trying to decide if they go just let their kids go back to school. Some people have the luxury to let their schools come to their children. They call them private. I would tell you most of Black America doesn't have that option. It is systemic. Within the public school system, there are courses called Just Get Him Passed so he can stay eligible to be an athlete. And then there are classes called AP, college prep. And it's within the public system. And if you look at the graduation rights, they hold the system in check. Because those who have will get the opportunity to have more, and those who have failed to get to where those who have are will have less opportunities because of the system. Now, if you can't see it, I would say you just don't want to. Because in all the school systems, if they're teaching you correctly, they're teaching you your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s, and once you learn them correctly, they ought to be able to be the catalyst to traject you into wherever you want to go. But the system is set that regardless of what some people do, there's only so high they can go. Now, we don't look at it as systemic racism. You know, we've had 45 leaders of the country, and we think systemic racism disappeared when one of them turned black. I have come to learn from having experienced all those things that, you know, if you give everybody the same opportunity, everybody will try to become the best they can be within the system, and the system ought to speak to those successes. Unless you don't want the system to succeed. And that's been a problem in this country since its conception. Systematically, when the country was formed, we was 3/5 of most of you. From the get-go. Now, I got it. I know enough about running to know if we both could run the same speed, but you were given 50 yards in front of me by nature, I ain't gonna never catch you, nor are you gonna ever say I could beat you. But it isn't even about the beating. Maybe that's where the problem is. If the system is designed to make you better off than somebody else, we go keep systemic racism going. If the system is designed to make it so everybody gets the same opportunity, then we can make progress with the system. But we keep wanting not to look at the fact that we got things set up that make it impossible for those who can't get there. We got two different set of criteria by which we operate. And affirmative action speaks to that, because affirmative action, I guess, was supposed to replace the word reparations or something in all the language. But when you get to the point where they're getting in because of these exceptions, well, these exceptions were the neglections that need to be addressed. And as long as the system says we all equal, and that's fair and that's right, but we know we didn't start there, systemic racism will still exist. Is it a disadvantage for black people? Well, not if you become part of the system. And you learn how to operate and be better and do better and have to work harder at it. And I guess that's sort of what I got, but I'm still within the system, and we all find ourselves there.
So I've got a lot of questions about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to go ahead and move on to this really quick. You kind of made one of the points that leads into our next slide, equality versus equity. So equality is treating everyone the same, promotes fairness, but it can only work if everyone starts from the same place. Equity is giving everyone what they need to be successful, and it actively moves everyone closer to success by leveling the playing field. And here's kind of a picture of that. So this is, to some extent, the reality. The reality is that some people, through the transfer of wealth or the access to a better education system or whatever the case may be, some people have a head start. Some people are way ahead of others. Equality, which is what we've been striving to get to as a country, it kind of puts everybody on a level playing field. But as you can see, some people still aren't able to get to where they need to be because they may be more vertically challenged or something like that. So. Now, equity is giving everyone what they need in order to be successful. And of course, liberation is just removing the fences altogether. But let's talk about equity for just a minute. So, how we know where the inequality comes from, right? We've been trying to move as a country towards equality. And like I said, from my perspective, still, we've kind of gotten there to where everybody has the same opportunities. Everybody has the same level playing field. But because of where we came from, it's not an equitable playing field, right? I think we can all agree on that. We can't? That it's not equitable?
No, it's not. We haven't gotten to the point of equality.
We haven't gotten to the point of equality.
It's a false hope and a false sense of opportunity.
So it's
Do you know, is a billionaire guy, Mark, or whatever it is, I can't think of his name, but he said something one time. He said, if someone stole $2 million away from me, I wouldn't even notice it was gone, right? But you see corporations like they'll donate, hey, I gave $1 million here, want to help you guys come, you know what I'm saying, help you guys come, you know what I'm saying, one or two made profit off of it, but in all reality, they're not doing anything to help you out. All the wealth is still at the top. None of it's truly coming down at the bottom. They're trying to throw stuff or make something flashy. It gives you like a false sense of hope, a false sense of opportunity. And if you're not really paying attention, you'll be woven by $1 million. You know what I'm saying? Which is actually nothing to what they actually can be given to help grow either the neighborhood, taxes, whatever, to actually help that community or something grow. I don't know if I said that clearly. Did y'all understand that?
I understood you.
Yeah,
you want me to try to
Yeah, please. I was trying to.
When money comes into the black community from the few that make it and prosper, the number of times it turns over in the community to improve the ground-based level of the community's ability to function, it doesn't stay there long enough to be reinvested. And the benefactors still be those who benefit the most. You know, check cash, who owns check cashing places? Who frequent check cashing places? Poor people.
People that don't have bank accounts.
Guess who own the poor check cashing businesses? The banks. Banks love poor people. They're gonna make more money off of them.
I would say in this country, don't get fooled by the names of laws to think things have changed. So you talk about passing the equal rights laws or amendments, or the Voter Rights Act or laws amendments, to say if that made everything perfect. They don't. They are an attempt to make things better. But our country has a history of making a move in one direction and then swinging back the other way. So if you have a Voter Rights Act to give people the right to vote, you then will have voter registration laws that make it certain that only certain people can vote. Or you'll have, equal rights amendments and things in terms of looks at economic development, but you'll have policy in place. Like I a few years ago applied for getting a new computer, getting a Dell computer, so they had online, you can apply and get a zero interest loan to buy your computer as long as you pay it back in 90 days. And I was kind of curious about the application process because it didn't ask for my social security number. It only asked for my zip code. And I didn't get the loan.
And when you look at the numbers on the people who makes those decisions, it's predominantly all white. And then you see the 1% who has conformed to the system who isn't white. At the top, it's still one base, it's still one group that's controlling everything. You know, as far as the red line goes, that gets like either you're going to conform and grow and get better and lose yourself in the process, or you're not going to be inside the top, you're not going to generate wealth, you're not going to have anything.
The equity slide you put up, where it said equity is viewed by certain segments of the population, the white population, as, oh, we're giving them a handout. That's how equity is viewed among certain white people. Oh, this person didn't have, like the boy was standing up on the 2 boxes, that was his handout.
I'm going to try to speak to that a little bit too. Thanks, Ed. Piggyback on that. So when we look at equity, we have to be cognizant of the past, back to getting rid of ignorance, historically, spiritually, and whatnot, because I'm reminded of one of the principles where Jesus said, or not Jesus said, I'm sorry, I can't remember who actually said it, but give a man a fish, you have to feed him continually, teach him how to fish.
Feed him for a day.
Right.
Yeah.
And this issue we're talking about spans a lot of different demographics, even from our Mexican brothers and sisters that many times risk their lives to come across the border. And it seems like we spend more time on enforcement and different things that we know we need to have good security and all that kind of stuff. But if we were to invest in the economy there, and not just invest, but be long-term partners to grow prosperity in places that are needed, education, job opportunity, skills training, yada, yada, yada. And I know we have pockets of this all over the globe. I'm not trying to say by any means we're not doing some of these things. But to whom much is given, much is required. So if we're doing those things, we end up lessening a lot of the crime rate. If we end up educating people, we know the statistics show crime rate goes down. If we create opportunities, but by doing that, I'm back to the power sharing model, I have to be willing to share power and to share pieces of the pie with others so that we all win. We are seeing that now in the last maybe, I'm gonna say 10, 20, 30 years with the advent of diversity and inclusion in different arenas, especially in the corporate world. And at first the buzzword was diversity, diversity, diversity. We need more people that look of different generations, different ethnicities, different backgrounds. That's a start, like some of these things put in place for equality. Great start. But then we started realizing, okay, well, we're starting to integrate more, maybe middle manager levels and maybe even some boards here and there. But if we're diverse but not inclusive, as in my voice counts as much as your voice as much as your voice when it comes to making decisions. We have done a window dressing of, look what we have, and we meet the standards of affirmative action or the quotas or whatever, but we really don't want you in decision-making roles. Even what we're dealing with now with our current presidential election. You know, we're keeping it real, right? And the most recent announcement of our vice presidential candidate on the Democratic ticket, you know, raised a lot of people cheering, a lot of people had ire, whether it's an ethnic thing, a gender thing, whatever it is, but we're not seeing people as people. We're seeing, what could I lose in this situation? Instead of, and that's driven by a word we've been talking about earlier, fear. Versus if my house is in order, I don't have to fear my brother. But if my house is not in order, oh, I definitely am going to operate fear. So I'll be more specific back to the whole equity piece. So we have enough ingenuity in this country and around the globe and enough creative thinkers, especially with this current generation, to be able to go into communities, not gentrify, and not allow property values to plummet, to then developers come in, buy that property up. It's happened all across this nation in many, many inner cities, and then build, live, work, play, high-rise, whatever, making massive amounts of money, and those people that formerly were there were either bought out, moved out, or taxed out. Does that make sense? So we have enough, if we can be creative enough to do these things that we're doing, we can use that same creativity in a positive manner to empower, so that now my brother or my sister is fishing for themselves and teaching others how to fish. But again, that takes authentic leadership, humility, characteristics that are somewhat sometimes lacking in these days. So anyway, let me
Well, the only way
stop.
to really do that is to we've got to bring jobs back to America. Ed, I think, said something about a handout. When we're giving, if someone's giving you something, that's really what it is. What we need is the opportunity for people to be able to go out and earn their own whatever. I think in the neighborhood that any one of us lives in, any one of the other one of us could come and buy the house next door if we can afford it. But we've got to be able to have good jobs to be able to afford that. And I think that's probably where a lot of the issues, a lot of the socioeconomic issues come in. And I think a lot of these are socioeconomic issues more than race issues. And look, I'll be the first to admit that I can be naive at times. But I really think that a lot of this comes down to that, because every neighborhood I've ever lived in, I think except for one, was a diverse neighborhood. And when I was living in a not diverse neighborhood, it wasn't because it was too nice, I can tell you. It's just, that it just kind of happened. But, so that's, I guess, kind of brings me back to, you said that things are not equal. So from my perspective, when I look at equal, what that means to me is that if a house is for sale, anybody who has the money to buy it can buy it. If a car is for sale, anybody who has the money to buy it can buy it. And I understand what you're saying about power and the overwhelming wealth. I've never had to deal with that personally, so I don't have a lot of experience with that. I certainly don't have the answer to it. If I did, I probably
We're
wouldn't.
looking at it through your lens.
What happened,
Using your lens. You're looking at it through your lens. It's a lot of people that want to fish, they're denied access to capital. They can't get a startup loan. There's people right now going to lose their businesses because they can't get a loan to hold their business up until this COVID is over. Access to capital. They're denied access to capital. It happens all the time. So you're looking at it through your lens.
So you think that that's a greater issue in the black community than it is? So you think that white people are granted more opportunity to get loans and things like that? Is that what you're telling me?
It all goes hand in hand, Scott. It's all hand in hand. If people were working, if they were working and making a decent living and all this other stuff, there wouldn't be nobody in the street protesting anything. This system that we have is unsustainable. And I hope these kids stay in the street until something changes, because this is unsustainable right now, the way things are going. My daughter has a degree, and it took her longer than I felt for her to find a job. And I go places every day with people that don't have degrees, because I ask them, are making a very good living.
I think your position is that when some of us speak, you think it's to you.
Maybe. I often feel that I'm supposed to come up with the answers.
You hear what I just said?
Yes, sir.
I don't see you as that, from what I know. You're not a major part of trying to promote systemic racism. You're trying to be the solution, but when the problem comes up, you own the problem when it's not all your problem. I hope that helps some.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know that we're certainly not going to solve the world's problems here today.
But you do know that there are people who don't see it the way you do,
I do.
that look just like you.
I understand that they favor me a little bit, yes.